Gosh, I'm trying to hold it in right now. The support's been overwhelming.
Tickets for Nashville this week are nearly sold out. We are calling this the Bryson effect.
I mean, with how much support we have out here, and it's just the start, that's a testament to what Live Golf is and what the Crushers are doing, what our team's doing, and what we're trying to do for Nashville and places all across the globe. So super excited for the future of Live.
It was nice to at least walk down the last few holes, or at least the last hole, knowing that it was pretty much done. It's never safe, but very proud of everybody, and of course Tiro. I mean, what a week to get his first win in a few years and win by 6 in an absolutely dominant performance the way he did. It was absolutely incredible, so I couldn't be happier for him.
Certainly with not winning for 3.5 years, you kind of naturally question if you can do it again. So I'm just proud of myself to be able to get through that and play the way I did.
Hello and welcome to a Tuesday live right here on the early line on SportsGrid and all across the SportsGrid network. That includes sportsgrid.com/watch, where you can find your favorite destination and consume everything all across the grid. He is Donnie Rightside. I am Ben Stevens. We are here together for the next 3 hours up until 11 a.m. Eastern Time. Only 3 games around Major League Baseball yesterday, but we get you up to speed ahead of a full card on this Tuesday around the bigs. We had some more free agency news as the NBA offseason now fully underway, and the chants continue bright and early on this Tuesday morning. Fire Berhalter for the United States men's national team after another disaster on the international stage last night in Kansas City. All of that and more, DRS, ahead of a quadruple header in the WNBA on this Tuesday night as well, here on this Tuesday on the early line.
Yeah, we got a lot to hit, which include 3 baseball games yesterday, but your boy told you Houston was better. Your boy told you the Mets were better. Your boy told you an upset was going to brew in Colorado. All 3 of those things happened, along with a couple RBI specials cashing in some best bets, which included Ben's best bet hitting as well. Those are the days that we like as we flip them over. But also, when you talk about firing coaches here, how about this? Fire an entire telecast for actually making us view like we're looking at ants from the moon in a soccer game. Tremendous stuff. And I say this a lot. When you make me commissioner, good things happen. When I put out the word on Twitter last night, and I forget about the thousands and millions of other people complaining as well, did you notice that Fox did change that camera angle about 30 minutes into the game? Tremendous stuff all the way through, and a horrible effort by the U.S. here. We got a lot to get to, Ben.
A horrible effort out of the United States men's national team that we will break down in just a moment. We start with NBA free agency news. It was expected that Klay Thompson would leave Golden State this summer and find a new NBA destination. It is now confirmed. After a historic 13-year run by the Bay, Klay Thompson now makes his way to the heart of Texas, joining the Dallas Mavericks. He will sign with the Mavs on a 3-year, $50 million deal after a 3-team sign and trade that sends Dallas's Josh Green to the Charlotte Hornets and 2 second-round picks back in return for Klay to the Golden State Warriors, ending a 13-year run, all 13 seasons of his NBA career as a member of the Warriors franchise that saw 4 NBA titles in that span as well. The Splash Brothers are no more. Klay Thompson joins Kyrie Irving and Luka Doncic in Dallas.
By the way, I love the move. And I don't know how much Klay Thompson has left in the tank, but if you could pick one spot where he probably could get energized, motivated, and be a perfect fit, it would be the Dallas Mavericks, because you have your leader out there as your point guard. You have another guy in Kyrie Irving that can handle his business. And all you needed now was more shooting around those two superstar players, and you got that with Klay Thompson. Nobody's going to say, like, oh, man, wide open three-point shot. Boy, I hope Klay makes the shot. Like, no, you expect Klay to make that shot. Love the move for the Mavericks. I think it fits right in their salary cap, but also a perfect fit. You need more shooters around your two superstars. You got that done yesterday.
A lot of money going around for the Boston Celtics. Jason Tatum, now the highest paid player in the history of the National Basketball Association, intending to sign a 5-year, $314 million extension. That's nearly $63 million per year. It is the richest contract in NBA history. Derek White also signs a 4-year extension worth $126 million. And then the Boston Celtics go up for sale. The ownership in Beantown saying, hey, next group, we just won you an NBA championship. Here's what is on the line in terms of your payroll. Hope you got the money to pay it up.
I'm telling you right now, you take a look at how much those players are making, and you could say that, Wick Grossbach, I was looking at Forbes magazine, worth like $500 or $600 million. There's actually more money tied up in salary now than what their owner is actually worth. So maybe the getting out time is perfect to do now. And they bought in 2002 for only a couple $100 million. That's going to be a windfall sale, but everybody seemingly cashing in, whether it's the owners or the players with the Boston Celtics, or heck, even the fans with another world championship.
Listen, you win championship number 18. You hang that banner inside TD Garden, good things will follow. The investment into the Celtics organization with the also offseason extension paid to Jaylen Brown last year. The Celtics booked as the NBA championship favorites entering next season, investing in the cause, trying to go back to back. The United States men's national team, once again, in a game where they needed to prove they could beat the best in the world and the best in South America, looking to take that next step in this golden generation of United States men's soccer, fail to do so once again. They come up short last night in Kansas City inside Arrowhead Stadium, falling to Uruguay 1-0. They needed to win after Panama beat Bolivia 3-1. They don't win, they don't draw, they lose. The United States men's national team of the 2024 Copa America will not advance out of the group stage.
It's just a terrible performance all the way around in this tournament. Also, let me get this straight. I still don't understand this. Roughly 350 million people in the United States. How come over the past 50 years we don't have one single star that's on the U.S. men's team that you can look at around the world and say that person is respected? Don't give me Christian Pulisic. I don't even know. Is he a top 50 player in the world? Does he even play overseas? Is he even impactful at this point? Yes. That's what I can't understand. How can we stumble around and not find one superstar player that you can put out there that you can trust in a big moment? It's just the way it is. And we've been waiting a long time. Like, let's just say soccer came on the scene, Ben, in the early 1990s, where it's like, okay, U.S. now, we're going to try to compete in World Cups. How's it been since then that we stink every single year? I don't understand. I just don't.
In DRS, they got to get it figured out very quickly. Less than 2 years away, the United States, along with Canada and Mexico, will host the 2026 World Cup. Thankfully, we do not need to qualify because that could be in danger as it was back in 2020. We will host it. We need to figure things out. This is the golden generation trying to rise to the occasion, and yet they have not. Christian Pulisic, you mentioned, is he the star of this U.S. Federation? Maybe so. Everybody on the roster now plays abroad in Europe. That was a goal for the United States Soccer Federation, and yet it makes no difference. We have never gone further than what the generations prior did in the 80s, the 90s, the 2000s, the 2010s, and this is the time to get it done. Sack Berhalter, send him packing for a second time in the last year. Figure things out. I'm not even a soccer fan. I'm just a proud American of this country and want to see us perform on the national stage, the international stage. And we do not do it time and again. There should be some promise based on expectation, and there never is. We are eliminated, that being the Americans, from Copa America. Now to the other soccer championship happening this summer over across the pond in Europe, in Germany. Portugal survives yesterday in PKs. Cristiano Ronaldo, in his final European competition for Portugal, was not great yesterday. Their goalkeeper, Diogo Costa, certainly was. Portugal advances into the quarterfinals. France beats Belgium on an own goal late in the match as well. That's the recap from the Euros yesterday.
Yeah, two good games over there, lower scoring, but also you're right about Ronaldo. Felt like he probably let the country down by missing that penalty kick in regulation, only to go to penalty kicks at the end and him score a goal. But I don't know if I've ever seen a goalie absolutely stone the other opponent repeatedly in penalty kicks. That was an unbelievable performance by Portugal's goalie, and they're moving on.
Just 3 Major League Baseball games yesterday. Here's a recap of 2 of them. The Houston Astros stay hot. They've now won 10 of 11, knocking off the Toronto Blue Jays 3-1 in the opener of a 4-game set this week. And the New York Mets, in an extra innings thriller, score 6 runs in the top of the 10th. The Nationals respond with 4 in the bottom half of the frame, but the Amazons hold on to continue the good work in June, now in July.
Yeah, and by the way, if you like RBI props, I cashed mine earlier, but my goodness, extra innings are so much fun and so many extra opportunities. If you had 16 total runs in that game, the Grimace Mets continue to hit at the plate.
Yes, they do, as does Francisco Alvarez. 3 RBIs yesterday.
Hey.
DRS told you to pay attention to the Ribby props. The Connecticut Sun stay one of the best teams in the NBA. They go on the road and knock off the Phoenix Mercury. The Seattle Storm blow out the Dallas Wings by 24, covering as an 11.5-point home favorite. From the WNBA, back to the association. Free agency news next.
SportsGrid, your 24/7 sports wagering network. Fantasy sports today.
Can it be a guy that's really useful in your fantasy rotation? I think the answer is yes.
Game
And guess
time
what?
decisions.
I'm going to lose the bet because he's injured again.
Betting above the rim.
He's got a broke J. That's all there is to it. He's got no confidence in that jump shot.
My thing you've always heard me say on the network is you're either winning or you're rebuilding.
In-game live all access.
Wondering when that was going to happen, and the answer is it just
Sometimes
did.
the bigger guy will have the advantage. Well, if the little guy can move, Joe, it's hard to hit the little guy sometimes when you're a big boy, right?
In-game live, prime time.
40-1, I'm going to take a little flyer on Justin Rose.
In-game live, overtime.
As you sit here and listen, watch right now, you may want to consider placing that bet.
It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
I think the one comparison that I'd like to make that reminds me of Tiger is Scotty's ability to make shots on a Sunday look like shots on a Thursday. And Tiger was so good at doing that too. In the high pressure leverage moments, he didn't lose a step. You know, he was still able to hit it pin high. He's still knocking down flag sticks. He doesn't miss hit it.
Only on SportsGrid. The Bostonian versus the book.
I mean, here's the question. I know hockey players are pretty superstitious. Do they start to ask themselves the question of being like, we signed Corey Perry? We did what?
No.
We signed Corey Perry? Good news, boys. We're going to the Cup Finals. Bad news, boys. We're losing.
At some point, you got to win one for Corey, right?
I guess
Get on
so.
the team and like, wow, this guy, we gotta win one here.
The Bostonian versus the book.
Hey guys, the NBA season just ended, but the fun never stops in the NBA because we love to talk ourselves some free agency, and a lot of money and a lot of players will change hands over the next few days, and quite frankly, already have. It's our duty to bring those indicators to you of why some of these moves make absolute sense. And if we're looking at the Dallas Mavericks, I told you in the opening stanza here of the early line for this morning show, I thought Klay Thompson to the Dallas Mavericks was the absolute perfect spot for the Splash Brother to land. And as you see that graphic there, a 3-year, $50 million deal for Klay Thompson to go from the Golden State Warriors over to the Dallas Mavericks. If we are looking at that anticipated starting lineup now for the Dallas Mavericks entering into the 2024 season, Luka Doncic, Kyrie Irving, P.J. Washington, Daniel Gafford, and now you put into that small forward position, Klay Thompson. Now, the question is going to be, we do know Klay Thompson of right now. It's not the Klay Thompson of 2017, 2018, and on. He's older, he's been injured, and not quite the same player, but that doesn't mean that he can't be an efficient part of a machine that has the legitimate chance to be an NBA champion. You just saw the Dallas Mavericks go last year into the NBA Finals and came up a little bit short. They just didn't have enough firepower. So, Ben, when we talk about the Dallas Mavericks making the move for Klay Thompson, he doesn't have to be the hero. He doesn't have to be the franchise savior. He just has to come in and play his part, which means play a little bit of defense, knock down your wide-open three-point shots. I love the fit here for the Mavericks and Klay Thompson.
Donnie, you could see the writing on the wall last year in Golden State. Klay Thompson coming off the bench, that maybe this historic 13-year run would be coming to a close. We'll see what his role is in Dallas now, along Luka Doncic and Kyrie Irving, but it does seem to be a natural fit. And you said this yesterday, do not pay for nostalgia. For what we are seeing in terms of this NBA summer and some of these offseason acquisitions, 3-year deal worth $50 million is not terrible. And it sounds crazy to say because Steph Curry and Klay Thompson have been such a factor in the NBA over the last decade plus, decade and a half, that Klay Thompson is 34 years old and yet doesn't feel like he is 34 years old, but that's where he is in the later stages in his NBA career. When you look at the odds in terms of how things play out in the Western Conference, we are seeing some new emerging teams near the top. The Mavericks price a little bit shorter after the acquisition of Klay yesterday, under $5. But Donnie, keep an eye on those top 4 teams. 3 teams under a 5-1 price to win the Western Conference crown next year. 4 teams separated by less than $1.50. The Thunder, now the favorites in front of the Nuggets after the acquisition yesterday of Isaiah Hartenstein. The Nuggets, the second best price. The T-Wolves not all that far behind Denver. And Dallas not all that far behind Minnesota. It is a new look in the Western Conference because entering last season, despite at the end of the year, the top 4 seeds being OKC, Denver, Minnesota, and then Dallas in the 5 spot, entering the season, it was still the Suns, the Clippers, the Lakers, the Warriors expected to make a run, and some of these teams deeper down the board, Oklahoma City and Minnesota, overperforming on expectation. Now it's almost a changing of the guard, if you will, out west.
Yes, it is. And also, I love the fact that we're taking a look here in the summer. Now, granted, again, free agency isn't over. We're going to see how some of these teams fill out over the summer before they get the training camps. But take a look at the OKC Thunder, plus 350 price. Denver Nuggets, 4-1 price. Minnesota Timberwolves, plus 430. The Dallas Mavericks, plus 490 before you get that shelf to the Suns and the Lakers. And you can honestly make an argument for each one of those top 4 teams as being the best teams in the Western Conference. If you're asking me right now, look, we always know what we get out of the Denver Nuggets, but they weren't splashy this offseason. They're just going to sit back and be like, you know, we got Jamal Murray. We got our center here who's the MVP and quite frankly could win another one this year. We'll be fine. Team continuity is what's going to make the most sense. But I love what the Oklahoma City Thunder did this offseason so far. They added those, and what we called yesterday with Coach James Young was on, the grown-ups in the room. And I thought that made a lot of sense where you have a young team that's learning how to win on the fly, get some of those grit and grime guys that'll play hard defense and be leaders in that locker room. I think it's fantastic. The Minnesota Timberwolves, we know what they have. They have enough to get over the hump now. The Dallas Mavericks adding Klay Thompson. And also, let's not forget, the Phoenix Suns, if they don't make any changes, that is a hell of a talented squad that's coming back.
Yeah.
And LeBron James, let's just say, if they get DeMar DeRozan here, as they're waiting to see what LeBron James is going to opt back in for, if they have enough money to spend on another free agent type of player or to make a move, 15-1. I love the Western Conference, loved it last year, and it looks sensational, Ben, heading in already to 2024.
Yeah, it does. Listen, LeBron James and Anthony Davis remain in Los Angeles. As of this moment, Kevin Durant, Devin Booker, and Bradley Beal remain in Phoenix. To my knowledge, none of those three of the big three out in the desert are free agents. Could there be some trades later this NBA offseason and summer ahead of next year? Certainly so. But as of right now, those are the loaded rosters. And yet we look at Golden State after 13 seasons with Klay Thompson, and of course 15 years with Steph Curry. The year after Klay was drafted, Draymond Green selected in the second round by Golden State. That big three, the anchor of the franchise that turned things around near San Francisco for this team. 4 NBA championships. A 5-time All-Star was Klay Thompson after 13 seasons in Golden State. In DRS, of course, there was the magical run from 2014 through 2019, 6 consecutive trips to the NBA Finals, winning the Larry O'Brien Trophy 3 of those 6 times. And then after 2 down years, missing the postseason, back into the NBA playoffs, back winning an NBA championship without KD there, led by that big three once again, the Splash Brothers and Draymond Green. And now the Warriors are 20-1 to win the Western Conference next year. Expected to make some moves this offseason to fill out the roster around Steph Curry, but he might walk into training camp come late September, early October, and not recognize the teammates that he has.
You're right about that, too. And also, you see that graphic that put up there, like a 4-time world champion. Like, our memories sometimes are so short here to remember how dominant, truly dominant that Golden State Warriors franchise was for a few years here when they had Kevin Durant and sort of plundering through the Western Conference, which has always been deep. So now you're finally seeing that flipping over the page where Klay Thompson leaves town and what's left here of the Golden State Warriors dynasty if some of those guys get older and aren't able to be replaced. But just to get back to the original point, Klay Thompson to the Mavericks, that's a big-time win for them and a perfect spot for Klay Thompson. And the Warriors did have to turn the page here, Ben.
The market moves. Dallas now a plus 490 price to win the Western Conference. That's the 4th shortest number. Now to the Boston Celtics next.
SportsGrid, your 24/7 sports wagering network. Fantasy sports today.
Can he be a guy that's really useful in your fantasy rotation? I think the answer is yes.
Game time decisions.
I'm going to lose the bet because he's injured again.
Betting above the rim.
He's got a broke J. That's all there is to it. He's got no confidence in that jump shot.
My thing you've always heard me say on the network is you're either winning or you're rebuilding.
In-game live all access.
Wondering when that was going to happen, and the answer is it just did.
The bigger guy will have the advantage. Well, if the little guy can move, Joe, it's hard to hit the little guy sometimes when you're a big boy, right?
In-game live, prime time.
40-1, I'm going to take a little flyer on Justin Rose.
In-game live, overtime.
As you sit here and listen, watch right now, you may want to consider placing that bet.
It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
I think the one comparison that I'd like to make that reminds me of Tiger is Scotty's ability to make shots on a Sunday look like shots on a Thursday. And Tiger was so good at doing that too. In the high pressure leverage moments, he didn't lose a step. You know, he was still able to hit it pin high. He's still knocking down flag sticks. He doesn't miss-hit it.
Only on SportsGrid. The Bostonian versus the book.
I mean, here's the question. I know hockey players are pretty superstitious. Do they start to ask themselves the question of being like, we signed Corey Perry? We did what?
No.
We signed Corey Perry? Good news, boys. We're going to the Cup Finals. Bad news, boys. We're losing.
At some point, you got to win one for Corey. Right?
I guess
Get
so.
on the team and like, wow, this guy, we gotta win one here.
The Bostonian versus the book.
Big money moves yesterday for the reigning NBA champs. That's the Boston Celtics that look to invest in their title defense entering the 2024-25 NBA season, and not only investing in the roster, investing in the entirety of the organization, as we will describe in just a moment. But first, the richest man now in the history of the NBA. His name is Jason Tatum. 5-year deal worth $314 million. When the extension kicks in, that's nearly $63 million per year. 62.8 to be exact. That is the richest contract we have ever seen in the NBA. DRS last offseason, his teammate in the NBA Finals and Eastern Conference Finals MVP award winner, Jaylen Brown, made headlines despite the struggles in the postseason for the C's, getting a huge offseason extension, 5 years worth $304 million. A little bit of financial maneuvering there. It never actually hit its peak of 304, but still one of the richest contracts in the history of the NBA. Jason Tatum surpasses Brown's number from a year ago. Again, that is the highest paid player in the history of the association, and his name is Jason Tatum.
But again, it's wild, man. We take a look at NFL teams, right? Like a 53-man roster. You got to pay a lot of guys, including the quarterback here, but they don't make as much money, obviously, per man as NBA players do. But when you take a look at the Boston Celtics at this point, and I know it's probably not a correlation like, hey, these salaries are getting out of control, because you've made so much money on your investment for the Celtics. We're talking about the ownership group since 2002, and that money is going to be so big from the TV contracts, which is why these salaries are elevated. These salaries just don't go up because we said they go up despite revenues, right? The revenues have to correlate with the salaries, but when you take a look at the roster, 5 or 6 guys making up like $750 to $850 million worth of contracts over the life of those players here. It's kind of amazing to look at. But if there was a team that you should be paying that money to, it's the Boston Celtics. They achieved success last year, winning that championship. You do know you have great young players. You want to take care of those, because what's going to happen when you say with Jason Tatum, wow, he makes that much money? Wait till 5 years when guys are making 75, 80, and $95 million a year. You'll figure it's a bargain. It's the same way we take a look at the quarterbacks in the NFL. That guy's not worth that money. No, he is, because he's coming up for a contract at a time when the money is really good, and you just stack chips on top of chips at that point here. But I have no faults here. If you're hating that Jason Tatum, that's way overpay. It's not. It's just what the salary cap is. The Celtics can afford it, and they'll be right back in the mix as favorites next year to win it all. Take care of your players who take care of your organization. That's what the Celtics are doing.
They're an incredibly short favorite to win next year's NBA championship. A 3-1 number. They are $5.50 in front of everybody else in the association. The Sixers, the Thunder, the Nuggets. $5.50 shorter than everybody else. The expectation out east is the Celtics facing off against whoever earns that second spot in the Eastern Conference Finals. A lot can change, but as of right now, and with the roster retooled and reinvested in, Boston needs to be back there. That is the level of success the Celtics will be judged by. Much the same story this year in 2023-24, and they passed that test with flying colors. When you look at Jason Tatum's deal, Donnie is spot on. Before this NBA offseason, there were 6 players set to make $50+ million entering next year. Jason Tatum now outduels everybody in terms of the monetary figures, but it's just the rising tide lifting all ships like we see in the NFL. The contracts are inflated because the money is there. Let me ask you this, DRS. 20-1, the number on Jason Tatum to win the NBA regular season MVP entering next year, tied for the 7th shortest price. Will Jason Tatum ever win an NBA MVP award?
I think he will win one. I just don't know if it's going to be next year. And it's crazy to say, like, maybe he wins one in a Celtics team that's a little bit down because he has to be that center focus. Now, we understand he's probably the best overall player in the Celtics, but they're just too good a team. And sometimes you sort of get that against you because on any given night, certain players can go off. I don't think he wins one over the next year or two. But having said that, I think he wins one in his NBA career. Yes, I do.
It is really interesting because the argument that you could make is team success correlating to individual success. Yeah. And yet that's already been the case for Boston. And Tatum never really has become all that close to winning an NBA MVP award. And, of course, you'll look at what we saw this postseason, losing out to his own teammate, Jaylen Brown, in both the Eastern Conference Finals MVP market and, of course, the NBA Finals MVP market, despite closing as a hefty odds-on favorite midway through game number 5 against Dallas. We'll talk more money for the Boston Celtics before we flip it over to the Major League Baseball news from yesterday. Only a 3-game slate in the bigs, so not all that much to recap and break down, but we'll do it up next, live right here on the early line on SportsGrid.
SportsGrid, your 24/7 sports wagering network. Fantasy sports today.
Can he be a guy that's really useful in your fantasy rotation? I think the answer is yes.
Game time decisions.
I'm going to lose the bet because he's injured again.
Betting above the rim.
He's got a broke J. That's all there is to it. He's got no confidence in that jump shot.
My thing you've always heard me say on the network is you're either winning or you're rebuilding.
In-game live all access.
Wondering when that was going to happen, and the answer is it just
Sometimes you think
did.
the bigger guy will have the advantage. Well, if the little guy can move, Joe, it's hard to hit the little guy sometimes when you're a big boy, right?
In-game live, prime time.
40-1, I'm going to take a little flyer on Justin Rose.
In-game live, overtime.
As you sit here and listen, watch right now, you may want to consider placing that bet.
It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
I think the one comparison that I'd like to make that reminds me of Tiger is Scotty's ability to make shots on a Sunday look like shots on a Thursday. And Tiger was so good at doing that too. In the high pressure leverage moments, he didn't lose a step. You know, he was still able to hit it pin high. He's still knocking down flag sticks. He doesn't miss-hit it.
Only on SportsGrid. The Bostonian versus the book.
I mean, here's the question. I know hockey players are pretty superstitious. Do they start to ask themselves the question of being like, we signed Corey Perry? We did what?
No.
We signed Corey Perry? Good news, boys. We're going to the Cup Finals. Bad news, boys. We're losing.
At some point, you got to win one for Corey, right?
I guess
Get on
so.
the team and like, wow, this guy, we gotta win one here.
The Bostonian versus the book.
Jason Tatum gets paid, so too does Derek White, signing a 4-year extension with the Boston Celtics worth nearly $126 million. The investment in Tatum. Last summer, the investment in Jaylen Brown. Now the investment in Derek White as well. They also acquired Kristaps Porzingis and Drew Holiday last offseason. You can see the makings, DRS, once again, to be in the NBA title race this year and certainly stacking up for that title defense.
Yes, and like sometimes you just like there's different levels to the league, right? You take a look at some organizations that are horrendous on a year-to-year basis, and then one team goes, well, here's my starting lineup. Drew Holiday, Derek White, Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum, Porzingis, then we can fill in with Al Horford. And you look at some of the other league teams around, it's like, how does this happen at this point here? That just shows you the health of the organization for the Celtics, getting all those years of stockpiling draft picks, but making the right draft picks when they got those, and then you have enough capital to trade away some of those draft picks to get superstar caliber players, then have an ownership group that says, you know what, we're not about like, you know, the Minnesota Timberwolves who A-Rod's trying to buy the team behind the scenes, wrote out a manifesto that basically says, hey, look, we're going to immediately drop payroll here to make as much money as we possibly can. So when you take a look at the Celtics, good for them. When you're in that market where they expect you to win for the Boston Celtics, provide that leadership, provide that dollars. They've done that. And in turn, they got another world championship here. And it doesn't surprise me one bit. It's a well-run organization that's high paid with his players and taking care of them. And again, the players taking care of the organization back by winning championships for them.
But who is truly going to fund said organization? Like when you pick up a round of beers for the boys at the bar, who's paying the tab? Because the Boston Celtics are now up for sale. Majority ownership in Boston, putting the Celtics up for sale and making them available for purchase. But you would think if you were ever going to buy the Boston Celtics, this would be the time, despite probably having to pay the premium. Championship number 18, investment in a large way in your superstars as well. How much cash can we round up? Do you think it's a worthy investment?
I think it might be a worthy investment at that point. And by the way, it's very rare in sports these days because most of the time these owners aren't selling for the money itself. Guys like Daniel Snyder and Donald Sterling, they actually get kicked out of the sport so somebody's able to buy their franchises per se. So it's kind of interesting at this point now where he's not like an old guy at this point, right? With Grossbach, you just saw him hold up the trophy there. He's owned it for quite some time, but usually it's that status symbol like, I own the Boston Celtics. Like every party you go to, the whispers in the background, hey, man, that's the guy that owns the Celtics right there. And it's usually a status symbol for these guys, not a money-making venture. So I am sort of interested. And also keep in mind this, Ben. Like, I love the NFL, but there's a lot more question marks on the viability of the NFL game over the next, let's just say, 15 to 20 years than the NBA. The NBA is a global program at this point, and the fees are skyrocketing to try to buy into this sport. So I am surprised that he sold at this point or looking to sell. Now, granted, a lot of money is going to come into his pocket and be fine, but it's interesting, as I said again, most people in order to sell need to be kicked out of their league, and they're selling willingly, and this isn't a downtrodden franchise at all. It's just won a championship.
At all.
18 total championships in their history, one of the more historic franchises. So that's interesting to me.
They bought the team back in 2002. Whatever the going rate is about to be, they are going to make a very, very, very large profit. It's probably not going to surpass what the Commanders were bought for or even the Denver Broncos a few summers ago in the National Football League, but it would not surprise me as the highest paid franchise in the history of the NBA, or the highest selling price, whatever that looks like. Now we go to Major League Baseball. Just a 3-game slate on a Monday around MLB, where a story right now emerging: the Houston Astros finally looking like the team we expected to be there all season long. The preseason favorites to win the American League pennant now look like the team we anticipated. 3-1 the victory yesterday in the opener of a 4-game set this week in Toronto. They were a -130 road money line favorite. A total of 8.5 stays under. Jeremy Pena, solo home run in the 5th. Yordan Alvarez adds on a 2-run shot in the 9th. And Hunter Brown was great. 6 innings of shutout work, only allowing 2 base knocks, as the Astros have won 10 of their last 11 games.
Yeah, it's very rare you're going to win any Major League Baseball game, let alone score 3 runs in a game you went 0 for 1 with runners in scoring position. That means you had one guy that reached second base. That's absolutely incredible at this point. But Hunter Brown, coming on as of late, struggled to start the season. Now it's 6-5. You look at that ERA and say it is still high at 4.07. That's because of how bad he was to open the season. 6 innings pitched, 2 hits, 0 earned runs, and 5 strikeouts here on the road. I thought they had the better pitcher on the mound because I actually didn't know what I was going to expect here, Ben, from Rodriguez. And he drops to 0-3, but that's not his fault. 6 2/3 innings pitched, only 1 earned run given up, and he takes the loss at that point. But this just goes to show you the Houston Astros sort of winning that Atlanta Braves way yesterday, having good pitching from a performer that we didn't expect it from for the entirety of the season, and walking away with a victory. Now 2 games above 500. Weren't we talking about these guys almost a dozen or so games under 500 just a few weeks ago? It's crazy the turnaround that we've seen now for the Houston Astros.
Donnie, read the headline on this next graphic that shows the turnaround for Houston over the past month. Destroy the fork? Of course, that's our bit here on the early line. If you do not know, when are we going to put the fork in the Houston Astros, as DRS coined, maybe around early June? We've kept it in the drawer for the last couple of weeks. Now that Houston has won 10 of its last 11, are we destroying the fork, knowing what we are seeing out of the Astros right now?
Yeah, and basically, you need a little help from your friends out there in the AL West who seem to be all bad at the same time, it feels like, to help out the Houston Astros. And we talk about, like, bringing the fork in and out, right? You take a look at what? Thanksgiving. You usually have that special cutlery set aside. You have that real sharp knife here. You got the fork. You got the special stuff. That's what I feel like we're trying to take out and put away at this point. So we're not carving up the Houston Astros just yet. I wanted to about a week and a half ago, 2 weeks ago, because I just don't think they're a great baseball team. But if you're playing decent baseball, which they are, and everybody around you doesn't play good baseball, well, you're right in the thick of things here, over 500. Who's to say by the All-Star break, which is coming up in about a week and a half, that the Astros could be in first first place in the AL West. What a turnaround that would be.
The Midsummer Classic, the All-Star game in Major League Baseball, exactly 2 weeks from today. Donnie, when you look at the odds for Houston, only a 3-game distinction between the Astros and the Mariners for the top spot in the American League West. We see those changing markets. Somehow, some way, the World Series price in the last month, despite much better baseball, has grown larger. That's probably just some movement for other teams around MLB. But where do you think is the best bet on the Stros as of this moment?
I don't think they have a good enough front-end pitching to do damage in the playoffs. And quite frankly, I didn't think they would even be in the playoffs 2 weeks ago. But now, as a legitimate threat to the AL West, that's where your money should lie, because you don't have to worry about anybody else. In particular, right now, it's the Rangers you got to worry about. Well, there's not too much to worry about with them right now, not playing great baseball. The Mariners, who are okay team, they got some good young starters there. They got a decent bullpen, and they can get some timely hitting in that large ball yard that they play in. But if I'm looking to place a wager, I don't think they do damage in the playoffs, but they certainly now can win this division. So maybe the plus 145 just to focus on who? The Seattle Mariners crumbling over the second half of the season. That's probably where my money would lie.
There should be some value in the pennant price, but as we know, October baseball is completely different. So I completely agree with you, DRS. The best bet on Houston right now to win the American League West. They are only 3 games back before the All-Star break. Not only has Houston won 10 of its last 11, Seattle has dropped 8 of its last 11 contests to make it only a 3-game difference. And when you look at the 25-33 record, 8 games below 500 at the start of June, it's not like they won 14 straight to begin the month. After June 18th, they were still 33-40, 7 games below 500 after the victory over the Mets to end out the weekend. It was the first time the Stros were above 500 this year. Now 2 games above 500 for the first time. Speaking of the Amazons, a good month of June carrying over into July. Recaps across the Monday slate next.
SportsGrid, your 24/7 sports wagering network. Fantasy sports today.
Can he be a guy that's really useful in your fantasy rotation? I think the answer is yes.
Game time decisions.
I'm going to lose the bet because he's injured again.
Betting above the rim.
He's got a broke J. That's all there is to it. He's got no confidence in that jump shot.
My thing you've always heard me say on the network is you're either winning or you're rebuilding.
In-game live all access.
Wondering when that was going to happen, and the answer is it just
Sometimes
did.
the bigger guy will have the advantage. Well, if the little guy can move, Joe, it's hard to hit the little guy sometimes when you're a big boy, right?
In-game live, prime time.
40-1, I'm going to take a little flyer on Justin Rose.
In-game live, overtime.
As you sit here and listen, watch right now, you may want to consider placing that bet.
It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
I think the one comparison that I'd like to make that reminds me of Tiger is Scotty's ability to make shots on a Sunday look like shots on a Thursday. And Tiger was so good at doing that too. In the high pressure leverage moments, he didn't lose a step. You know, he was still able to hit it pin high. He's still knocking down flag sticks. He doesn't miss-hit it.
Only on SportsGrid. The Bostonian versus the book.
I mean, here's the question. I know hockey players are pretty superstitious. Do they start to ask themselves the question of being like, we signed Corey Perry? We did what?
No.
We signed Corey Perry? Good news, boys. We're going to the Cup Finals. Bad news, boys. We're losing.
At some point, you got to win one for Corey, right?
I guess
Get on
so.
the team and like, wow, this guy, we gotta win one here.
The Bostonian versus the book.
The New York Mets, a proud organization in their grimace era.
They are.
Could it continue over to the month of July? On July 1st, it did. What a wild game last night in the nation's capital between the Mets and the Nats. It was tied at 3-all. Entering the 10th inning, the New York Mets scored 6 runs in the top half of the 10th. The third RBI of the night for Francisco Alvarez. J.D. Martinez, a 3-run shot. Jose Iglesias, a 2-run homer. 6 total runs for the Amazons. They're good, right? Up 9-3, entering the home half. Some wiggle room, and they needed all of that wiggle room as the Nationals scored 4, made it a competitive game. Eventually, New York holds on for a 9-7 victory in extras to win the opener of a 4-game set this week against their divisional foes.
And by the way, handicapping this game, I thought the Mets were the better team. Now, at the end of the final score, you say, hey, man, perfect handicap by your boy DRS. Not necessarily, because I told you yesterday that lineup for the New York Mets projected extremely well against left-handed pitching, which Gore was. Gore goes 5 2/3 innings pitched, only 1 earned runs and 8 Ks to go along with that. And actually lowers his ERA to 3.47. And Peterson, who's not a great pitcher, 6 1/3 innings, 7 hits, only 2 earned runs given up. So you say to yourself, man, that's a great cap if you're looking at the under, let alone having 16 total runs on the board. And the Mets almost blew it in extra innings after that crazy top of the 10th inning. But good on the Mets here. If this is what you factored in, sometimes better to be lucky than good. Because if you would have told me this final score before that game started, say, you know what? That makes some sense, man. The Mets are really hitting left-handed pitching well, which, again, wasn't the case when you actually looked at the game or the box score. But everything theoretical, when you had chances to get base hits, if you have enough guys on base, eventually that dam is going to break and you're going to score a lot of runs, which is why I really liked Alvarez. 2 of 5 yesterday, 3 RBI. The simple process was everybody's been hitting well in front of him. There should be runners on base, and there were plenty of runners on base for Alvarez as he got those 3 RBI. But another good win for the Mets. Why? Because I just like the fact that they are hitting the baseball here and finally coming around. And each day now, it looks like with those 30-day splits, the Mets are almost a must-bet team, or at least a must-RBI bet team for certain individuals.
Even on the money line on both sides entering the game, the Mets minus 108, the Nats minus 108 as well. We feel for you if you had the under of 8.5 with a game tied at 3 apiece after 9 innings. But that's extra inning baseball when you start with a runner on second base in scoring position. Big day in the Capitol as well for the Nationals and their top prospect, one of the highest ranked prospects in all of MLB, James Wood. 1 for 4 yesterday, but a base knock in his first ever Major League Baseball career at-bat. Came off the bat at about 119 miles per hour for the 6'7" James Wood, who was pretty good in his debut. The New York Mets now 17-8 since the start of June. It's a holiday weekend up in Queens. Kevin Walsh might even be making his return back to his hometown. Of course, it's the 4th of July. And on Wednesday, the 3-week anniversary from when Grimace threw out the first pitch. The Mets, since that point, now 13-4. Extra innings in 2 of the 3 MLB games that we had on a short slate Monday. That included inside Coors Field in Denver. Jake Cave, walk-off RBI single for the Colorado Rockies. They win 8-7 over the Milwaukee Brewers. The Brewers were a road favorite on the road in Denver, as you would expect, with the best team in the National League Central and one of the worst teams in baseball in the Rockies. They win outright after Milwaukee takes the weekend against the Cubs. They lose the opener inside Coors Field last night.
Yeah, and I thought the Rockies had a legitimate chance because sometimes you just take a look at that Coors atmosphere. And we'll take a look at it again today as our guy Dallas Keuchel is on the mound in Colorado. I don't think that's going to lead to very many victories again for the Milwaukee Brewers, but we'll get to that later. But looking at Gomber, I thought he would be okay at home. 6 innings pitched, 4 earned runs in Colorado. You will take that. It means you're in that baseball game. And also, I do like sometimes, like it used to be in Major League Baseball, we talked about the openers and like Tampa Bay would do that. Regardless of the pitcher, whether it was like McClanahan who could win the Cy Young, they'd throw an opener in front of him. It's just the way they went about their business. A high leverage pitcher going up against your best three guys to start. But now Major League Baseball teams are starting to get smart, going like, I think our starter stinks tonight, so let's go with an opener, which the Brewers did, which worked exactly the way you wanted to. 1 innings pitched, no hits, no earned runs. All right, Bryce Wilson, get in there and see what you can do. 4 innings pitched, 5 earned runs, absolutely hammered right away. So sometimes we ask, some people ask me, so, well, Donnie, how do you handle that situation when an opener comes in? Don't worry about it, because that bad pitcher is still expected to go 4 to 5 innings after the opener. If you think he's a bad pitcher, he's not going to turn into a great pitcher just because he misses the first 3 batters. Because as you saw with Wilson, and nobody missed him once he got into that baseball game. So don't worry about it. But I thought the Rockies had a chance, and it was a coin flip game. Worked out my favor. It's about a plus 130 to plus 135 dog by the time that game started yesterday.
A Coors total goes over 11.5, and unlike in D.C., it went over in regulation. The Rockies just 29-55, the worst mark in all of the National League, but winning outright as a dog yesterday against the Brew Crew. No dogs winning outright yesterday in a doubleheader slate in the WNBA. The Seattle Storm looked like one of the best teams in the league, and they continue to play the part as an 11.5-point favorite against one of the worst teams in the league in Dallas yesterday. The Storm win big by 24, covering as an 11.5-point favorite, 95-71. I told you my best bet was the WNBA's leading scorer from a season ago, Jewel Lloyd, who got off to a slow-scoring start this year, not as of late. 90 combined points in her last 3 games. Points prop yesterday against the Wings, 21.5. Lloyd leads all scorers with 26.
Yeah, the only shock, I guess, with this game was the Wings actually had a 1-point lead at the end of the first quarter. But even handicapping this game yesterday, if you needed to, I was already putting that loss in the Wings column, and certainly they didn't disappoint. They got hammered yesterday by the Storm.
Yeah. 4-15. Dallas has lost 9 of its last 10. Seattle has won 12 of its last 15 since starting the season, just 1-3. The Connecticut Sun also stay near the top of the table, making 15 wins for Connecticut. On the road as a favorite, 83-72. Covering is just a short 3.5-point favorite against Phoenix. The Mercury on a second leg of a back-to-back. Balance for Connecticut, and as we often say, a total of 157.5 stays under. That is Sun basketball. Great on the defensive side of the floor. What is next for the United States men's national team? We'll tell you up next.
SportsGrid, your 24/7 sports wagering network. Fantasy sports today.
Can he be a guy that's really useful in your fantasy rotation? I think the answer is yes.
Game time decisions.
I'm going to lose the bet because he's injured again.
Betting above the rim.
He's got a broke J. That's all there is to it. He's got no confidence in that jump shot.
My thing you've always heard me say on the network is you're either winning or you're rebuilding.
In-game live all access.
Wondering when that was going to happen, and the answer is it just
Sometimes
did.
the bigger guy will have the advantage. Well, if the little guy can move, Joe, it's hard to hit the little guy sometimes when you're a big boy, right?
In-game live, prime time.
40-1, I'm going to take a little flyer on Justin Rose.
In-game live, overtime.
As you sit here and listen, watch right now, you may want to consider placing that bet.
It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
I think the one comparison that I'd like to make that reminds me of Tiger is Scotty's ability to make shots on the Sunday look like shots on a Thursday. And Tiger was so good at doing that too. In the high pressure leverage moments, he didn't lose a step. You know, he was still able to hit it pin high. He's still knocking down flag sticks. He doesn't miss-hit it.
Only on SportsGrid. The Bostonian versus the book.
I mean, here's the question. I know hockey players are pretty superstitious. Do they start to ask themselves the question of being like, we signed Corey Perry? We did what?
No.
We signed Corey Perry? Good news, boys. We're going to the Cup Finals. Bad news, boys. We're losing.
At some point, you got to win one for Corey. Right?
I guess
Get
so.
on the team and like, wow, this guy, We gotta win one here.
The Bostonian versus the Book.
Disappointment once again on the international stage for the United States men's national team. Last night it wasn't too international in Kansas City, inside Arrowhead Stadium, in a game the U.S. had to win to advance out of group play into the knockout round at Copa America. They don't win. They don't even draw. They lose 1-0 to Uruguay. Panama beat Bolivia big 3-1, so they would have had to win by at least a goal, but still Team USA unable to do that. Disappointment time and again. It's the Twilight Zone, DRS. We are in purgatory. We are in limbo. This is the golden generation. One of the priorities of the United States Soccer Federation was to have everybody on the men's national team play over in the highest leagues in Europe. Everybody does, and we still can't get out of the group play in a tournament here in the States. What is going to happen in the World Cup in less than 2 years? I'm not even a soccer fan, and I'm pissed on this Tuesday morning.
Absolutely should be at that point. Also, when it comes down to, like, Uruguay already had moved on into the next round. So we see this all the time in professional sports. Let me get this straight. This team is going to fight, kick, and scream to get by here. And the other team is like, just don't get hurt. Just don't get yellow cards. Just don't get kicked out of the game. Who cares what happens? And Uruguay dominated the United States yesterday in a 1-0 effort. That's what I don't understand. And yes, like I talk about this many times, we should be much better as a soccer nation. How much longer do we have to wait for at least a few good players to come along, or a coach that actually looks like he knows what he's doing? When's the like sometimes when you watch like high-level basketball, right? It's like, man, that coach really knows what he's doing. Or when they call a timeout out of the break, they're really well prepared. How come every single time that we're taking a look at U.S. soccer, and even yesterday, having some guests on, we're saying to ourselves, you know, like, well, we're going to do a whole national search on a coach that we think stinks, but we're going to come back with the same coach that stinks, who's the best person for the job. Wouldn't it be nice just to hire a head coach like, you know what? They finally solved that issue moving forward. The U.S. is in good hands. But every time we line up, it's like, boy, what is this matching up here? What is this pairing? What is this offensive force we have? It just never ends up. And just once, can we find a superstar player that can carry us? I'm not asking for Messi. I'm not asking for Ronaldo. Just give me somebody you can lean on in big moments here. We just don't have that, and it's been that way for 30 years now.
We're supposed to, though. Christian Pulisic is supposed to be that guy. He's yelling at the ref, so the ref won't even shake his hand. Flo Balogun's supposed to be that guy. Nope. Ricardo Pepe is supposed to be that guy. Nope. Nobody is that guy. Gio Reyna. Yeah, right. So much goes into the Greg Berhalter thing. Obviously, the U.S. Soccer Federation said last night they will do a deep dive into this national federation ahead of the World Cup in less than 2 years that will be hosted here in North America and Mexico. They also did an internal investigation into Greg Berhalter after they got bounced from the World Cup 2 winters ago, where a lot of dirty laundry was uncovered, led by Claudio Reyna, who played on the U.S. men's national team, Gio's father, who was one of Greg Berhalter's best friend. His contract expired into this investigation. No wrongdoing was found. They do an internal, I guess, like they had an evaluation period with some outside investigative firm to determine who was the best person to lead the U.S. men's national team into the future, and they circled back on Berhalter. It's just, who should coach the U.S. men's national team, DRS?
Yeah, you know what? If we take a look, like, what would we rather have? Like an NBA guy? Would we rather have a college football guy? You know, college football, like if you get like, you know, Dabo out there, I mean, he would take country pride. Maybe a Kirby Smart out there really to take the reins here. Or even, can you imagine if Nick Saban, now retired, took over the U.S. men's national team and said, you know what, I'm going to whip this team into shape? Imagine the athletes we would get. Oh, my goodness, yeah. So now we're on to something here. Let's take it. Since, look, the coaches that we've had for Team USA for 50 years have all been horrendous. Let's just not even take a soccer coach here and just put another coach in there, because apparently you can't do any worse.
Nick Saban would get those boys into shape in the next 2 years. I guarantee you that. So the Americans out before even reaching the knockout round at Copa America. Leo Messi and Argentina, the favorites at plus 115. Brazil, second best price, plus 270. Uruguay is good. It's not like we lost to a doormat last night, 5-1, third best price. Panama beat Bolivia. Panama will get out of the group. France advances past Belgium in the Euros yesterday on an own goal. Portugal survives in PKs. Some notable results yesterday at Wimbledon. You want to read them?
I don't want to read them, but I want to bring up this, by the way, too. Like, here's what we got out of the Copa here for Team USA. Let me just get this point across here. Bad grass, bad play, and bad camera angles. Enough. We'll be right back. Don't go anywhere. Hour number 2 about to be underway.